that's a proper term. And I think the milestone they have reached is we're celebrating. So we're glad to have everyone here this evening for a little bit of an order of the service. Tim Miller will lead us in a congregational song, and then Deb will have the class history, and the graduation speeches will be after that. It's on your program too. So I think at this time we'll turn the time over to Tim.
Good evening and welcome. In our Hymns of the Church, number 375, we'll be singing one song at this time. I invite you to stand with me, number 375. Be thou my vision. Be thou my vision, O Lord. Not be all to be said apart. Thou art my soul, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou so be thou my true word. I be thou be Lord. Thou my great Father, thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Be thou my buckler, my sword for the fight. Be thou my dignity, thou my delight. Thou my soul shelter, thou my high tower. Raise thou me heavenward, O power of my power. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou my inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only, first in my heart. I keep of heaven my treasure, thou art. High King of heaven, when victory is won, may I reach heaven's joys, O bright and sun. Heart of my heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. Thank you. You may be seated.
It's a privilege to be here tonight. It's especially since all of these boys. I taught at least some of their high school years, and yeah, it's just pretty special to be part of the graduation. And I wasn't in high school this past year, but I still have some memories of the boys. Wyatt keeps things lively. Things were kind of quiet the days he wasn't there. Braylon loves words and books and likes learning. He wrote some amazing stories. You should ask him to see some of them. And Darvin, we loved his dry wit, his one-liners. Like one day, we were talking about, I think about getting fat, and eating candy from the candy dish. And he said, well, he could eat it, and he'd save us that worry. So I'm going to first give Darvin's kind of path through school, his class history, and then I'll do the others. Darvin started 2 years before the others, before Wyatt and Braylon. So they were never in the same room until they were all together in high school. In first grade, Roxy Yoder was Darvin's teacher. His classmates were Krista, Keisha, Christine, Sophia, Cheyenne, and last but not least, your cousin Conrad. There were 15 in room 1, and a memory from that year was making candy cars and art and eating them. Roxy was his teacher again the next year. Jana joined the class, and now there were 8 of them. That year they went to Toledo Zoo for the field trip. For third grade, his teacher was Brenda Friesen. Christine Troyer left during that year. Oh yes, and there was a helper, April Friesen. And I saw a picture, Darvin, where you had brought goats to school. So I'm not sure if it was a pet day or what, but it fit. That year, the field trip was to Souder Village. In fourth grade, Laura Hirschberger was his teacher. Krista left. Grace came in. And the pet peeve you had on profile that year was going to school. So I think maybe you got over that. Laura was your teacher again in 5th grade. Conrad was no longer there. I'm sure that was sad for you. And I found a memory about that year, the program, room 3 in the program did the spiffiest giant in town. I don't remember what it was about, but I remember that title. And that year we went to the Fair Oaks farm. In 6th grade, your teacher was Sarah Trujillo, and you were the only boy in the room, but you survived. And some things I found said you loved to scare the girls or share a joke. That year, the field trip was the Grand Rapids Tree Runner Park, the trampoline park. 7th grade, Kara joined before Christmas. I don't know where all the guys were. That's just another girl, right? But at least there were 4 guys in room 4. And your teacher was a guy too. Some of the teacher's observations that year were that you were quiet and observant. And that is the year we all remember because we were over here practicing for the program and realized that school was done. And we still had a program, but we didn't go back to school. Kind of an abrupt end. 8th grade, your teacher was Wendell again. There were still 7 of you in your class, and you were the only guy in the whole room again, but at least that made you more important. And your teacher was a guy. And I'm sure 8th grade was exciting in that you're going to graduate from 8th grade. And on your profile, if you could go anywhere you wanted, you would go to El Salvador to get Coke, which I would do that too. Well, I wouldn't go just for that, but yeah. But the next year in Spanish class, we drank real Coke in glass bottles sometimes. Okay, then in 21, 22, you're in 9th grade, you're in high school, 4 other guys in room 5. And as I recall, you did well in Spanish class that year. That was a fun Spanish class. 22, 23, I was his teacher now in high school. 23, nobody came in that year, no new 9th graders. And the 2 classes above you graduated at the end of the year. And Cameron and Darvin did the yearbook. The next year, Norma, Wyatt, and Braylon came into high school. And now Darvin is the oldest guy at school, the one everybody looks up to, and you can look up to him physically as well. He was the head of the yearbook committee that year and used a stunning picture of the total eclipse on the cover. 24, 25, he was determined to finish by Christmas, and he did. He worked hard and finished strong. Okay, then for Wyatt and Braylon. As I said, they started 2 years later. In kindergarten, April, Friesen was their teacher. And there was Wyatt, Emily, that would be Emily Yoder, Abigail, Ashley, and Braylon. And I remember there that last recess with room 1 was a highlight. Grade 1, Roxy. And, okay, Isaac and Maria also joined grade 1, so there was now 9. And I noticed that you were already, your pieces in the yearbook where there was a drawing first year. And there's several more of those as you go through. As we go through the years, he'll often have a drawing for his piece. Roxy was a teacher in grade 2 again. Emily, Abby, and Isaac were no longer there. And I don't quite remember if this was Wyatt's pet peeve or Braylon's, but it was when Roxy erases his page. Not sure why. So I guess you can go back into your book 16, 17, check that out, because I forgot to write that down. And that was the year that Brandon and Braylon blew shofars at open house, or shofars. Were you guys priests? Is that what you were? Don't quite remember. Grade 3, Sandra was their teacher. And same students, Julian came in. That year we went to Royal Oaks Farm. Sandy again taught them again in 4th grade. That year for open house, they had about stars and nebulas, sun, constellations, galaxies, and as I recall, the room was dark. And Braylon in his piece says he and Wyatt got sent to principal. I don't know what that was about either, but it was his dad at least, so. Oh, no, it wasn't Braylon's dad, it was Wyatt's dad. I guess if you want to know more about that, ask them. Grade 5, Olivia Hirschberger. Nathan joined them. Julian left, didn't come back. But still, there was all 3 boys in that grade were Millers. Before Julian left and after Nathan came. Some observations that year were that Braylon loves to read, Wyatt loves to tell stories. And they're writing longer stories for your book. You should go back and read them. In 6th grade, Norma Otto joined them, so now there's 3 girls and 3 boys. Some observations someone wrote is Braylon figures things out and absorbs all he can. Wyatt tries hard to have his work neat and correct, and he also loves drawing. Room 3's topic for open house that year was early America, and Wyatt drew a picture for the yearbook again. It was good, look it up. Room 4. This must be grade 7. Yeah, already in room 4. Time flies. There's 5 of them again. Ashley's no longer part of the group. And in the yearbook, Wyatt wrote about the trip to Henry Ford Museum and Greenfield Village. Wendell would have been their teacher. And the next year, same 5 as last year, same teacher. That was the year they did string art and made a scale model of a building. Wyatt drew a giraffe for the yearbook. And Braylon, I think it was, wrote about special days. And one of those was our handicap day. So I remember going somewhere and collecting wheelchairs and crutches and just whatever I could find. And every person pretended they had a handicap. And they had to act like that really was true. And Wyatt was missing a limb and Braylon had a broken limb. 23, 24, they came over to high school. Now they're the big boys in school. Well, Darvin was still bigger than they were. Both Braylon and Wyatt published poems in the yearbook. The field trip that year was the year of the eclipse, and we went to Ohio to experience that in its totality. 24, 25, a bunch of girls joined high school. Jenna, Deanne, and Caitlin. Well, that's 3. Boys were no longer the majority. We had Spanish classes for 9th and 10th. And that was the year Darvin finished by Christmas. And so now there's only 2 boys. So when Wyatt or Braylon was missing, it was kind of a sad day for the other one. And it seemed like we had lots of sickness that year. Then there was the day that we were hoping for a snow day the next day. But I told him, well, if we don't get a snow day, then for Spanish class, we'll go to the Mexican restaurant in town. And we did that. And for our Christmas program, Wyatt and Braylon sang the same duet that they sang in 4th grade. But yeah, there was some maturing and all that. It was different, but it was neat to see them repeat that. For their last year, they had a new teacher. They knew him well, but it was a different teacher. And some more girls came in, but then Jenna, Caitlin, and Norma hadn't come back. Your last year, you must have felt how quickly the end is approaching, but you were determined to get finished, and you did it. And I'm proud of you. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and showing your support for us. It means a lot to have so many people here today, and to encourage us on as we go on. I can still remember back before I was in high school, I guess. Doesn't seem like it was long ago, but time really flies. It seemed like a long time till high school would come, and now the day has come when I'm finally done. I'm writing high school, and a few of the benefits of going through it. Going all the way through has taught me a lot. Coming to first year, just setting goals for myself. It was a change of pace, kind of going to set your own pace, how you want to do stuff, and stepping into something new, setting goals for yourself. It was a big change, but it was all for the good. It wasn't easy at first, but after a little bit, you can get used to it. You learn more of self-discipline, responsibility, just getting stuff done, a little bit more on yourself. Also, being able to finish within 3 years or 4 years is just something that kind of, for me, just pushes me on a little bit. Knowing that you can finish a little bit sooner. A lot of us like to finish some of our stuff sooner, so we can, it's something that we kind of in our carnal nature to finish earlier. Second year, a little bit more of a tougher year. Going through Algebra 2 wasn't really fun since I'm not really a math guy. And science was also something that was a little bit more difficult and takes up time. But these two things can help you to spend your time more wisely, being more careful with it. A lot of different things that can teach me. And also it can help you with how you manage your time at home, what you do, how you manage your time between homework and other chores that you have at home. Third year can help you to be pushing harder. It seems like that being to the end is a little bit closer and helps you to push more. Or if you aren't going to finish in that, know that your last year is for sure going to be just right around the corner. My third year kind of felt long since I was so close, yet it seemed so far away. But then the next year, the next year comes quicker. It seemed like the more I went through school, I think the next year seemed to go by faster just about every time. Going to the fourth year, just knowing that you're going to be able to finish this year, the end was so close, yet you know that you still have work to do, and I was able to finally push all the way through. It's a great feeling to know that I was finally done. All the time and effort that I spent on homework and all the other stuff going with it was finally complete. But now what do I do now that I'm done? How do I want to use the things that I have learned in my years of school? How do I take what I learned and keep doing it in the future? I hope I can use these valuable things to push me on through life and to make good decisions that benefit myself and can benefit people around me using the things that I have learned. High school may not be recommended. There's many people that survive perfectly fine without it, but I'm glad I went through it. Many different things that I learned that will benefit me in the years to come. And I want to learn more as I keep on going in the future. And I want to learn not just things about school, but just things about life as I keep on going. So thank you all for coming and showing your support.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you to each one of you who has come out tonight. We, the class of 2026, deeply appreciate the support we feel by your presence. We have anticipated this evening for many years, and it is finally here. We have dreamed about this event, and now our dream is being accomplished. However, we didn't make it this far by our own selves. There were many individuals who played an important part in our accomplishment. First of all, I would like to thank God for giving me a sound mind to think and reason. He has always been at my side and strengthened me when the future seemed grim. Secondly, thank you, Mom and Dad, for sending me to a private Christian school, even though it would have been less costly to send me to a public school. Thank you for being willing to answer the millions of questions I had to ask. Also, thank you to my siblings for the advice that you gave me, whether it was subjects to do in high school and which ones to avoid. Thank you to the school board also for the hours you work behind the scenes in order for the school to operate properly. Thank you also to all my teachers for the patience you had with me and the life lessons you taught me. Thank you for the many hours you spent preparing for classes, grading our work, and answering my many questions. Lastly, thank you to all my classmates. Thank you for the many good times we had in the classroom and for making the boring classes seem a little bit more appetizing. I would especially like to thank Braylon for sticking with me all 11 years of school. I appreciate the friendship you have shared with me, and I look forward to working with you this summer. Thank you, Darvin, also for being willing to wait and graduate with us. I enjoyed the 2 years we spent together in high school and the humor you brought with yourself. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, many memories were made in each room. In room 1, Roxy introduced us to shofars, and that was a very memorable open house, and now I happily own a shofar from Jerusalem. In room 2, it was always a highlight to flip around a paper coin that had a fun activity written on the back. One of the most memorable activities was hanging out at Sandra's house for the afternoon. In room 3, going to Howie's in a buggy was definitely a highlight. Another great memory I have is of the students teasing Olivia of her favorite letter of the alphabet and her favorite bird. If you need some context, you can come up and ask me. On the side note, Braylon, I think I still have side effects from that mini pig in a blanket eating contest, or at least my stomach hasn't gotten smaller ever since. Room 4 was definitely a unique experience for me due to having Dad as my teacher. I won't go into detail about the pros and cons of having him as my teacher. However, the first memory of Room 4 that pops in my mind is going to listen to the Messiah in Bern. That was definitely a highlight of the year for me. Some other memories are the 100th Challenge, art, and Thursday morning singings. High school is definitely a highlight in itself of my schooling years. I love being able to work at my own pace and having to set my own goals and accomplish them. However, high school life isn't just the phrase eat, sleep, and work. There were many also fun activities that went along with high school. For those that received privileges, we would go on a privilege trip about once a quarter, which made for some many good memories. I also thoroughly enjoyed the good discussions and conspiracy theory arguments that we had in the mornings. I count it a blessing that I was able to go through high school, and I definitely encourage anyone to go through high school. Going on to the subject that I have chosen to briefly speak upon is running the race well. I would like to start off with a story. In the 1992 Summer Olympics, Great Britain's Derek Redmond exploded off the starting block. His hope for gold just 400 meters away. Every tuned muscle was pushed to its limits. Then, in an instant, one of those carefully trained muscles tore, and the terrible pain hobbled Derek to his knees. At that moment, Derek's race was over. Everything he had hoped for and worked for was lost. Agony, even greater than his pain, etched his face and flooded his heart and mind. Grasping his leg, Derek knelt on the track, completely still. What happened next made the whole world stand still, eyes riveted on their screens. The world watched as Derek Redmond, with tears of pain and disappointment, rose on one leg and began to hobble forward. A stretcher was brought by a medical personnel, but Derek refused it. Instead, he kept hobbling forward on his own. From the stands, Derek's father pushed past security to help his son. Derek kept going. Quickly, it became clear to everyone that Derek intended to cross the finish line, and that aroused the whole watching world. They knew that they were not spectators to defeat, but witnesses to a different race. One run with heart, not haste. In worldwide unison, fans rose to their feet and cheered more loudly and proudly for Derek than those who crossed the finish line first. That day, Derek claimed victory as he limped over the finish line. And in witnessing his triumph, the world too claimed something, a spark of hope and a quiet personal triumph within themselves. Interestingly, many people don't remember who got first place in the race. However, many remember who got last place. There are many lessons we can take from this story. First of all, we as Christians are all on a race. We all have a goal, just like the runner. Our goal is the eternal prize awaiting us at the finish line. However, just as the race for the runner, the race is difficult and sometimes we fall. We lose our focus on the goal and dwell on our troubles and mistakes. But we must refocus and not give up. Sometimes it means pain and heartaches, but we must keep pressing on. Although the pain may be unbearable, we have a heavenly Father that we can lean upon, just like Derek's father helped his son finish the race. Lastly, we don't have to be the first to cross the line and receive the gold medal. Christ accepts us for who we are. The important part is that we don't give up and finish the race well. The reward is well worth the pain of the race. I hope these thoughts can be a blessing to each one of you as you enter this next week. To my fellow graduates, look at how far you've come. Let's not give up. Didn't it take Thomas Edison over 1,000 tries to invent the light bulb? Let's keep pressing toward our goal. I look forward to seeing what God has in plan for each of you. My prayer for each one of you, and also myself, is that we can say in the end, like Paul, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. And also hear God's word to us. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Just want to echo what they have already said. This support really does mean a lot for us. So for my speech now, I'm going to be talking about something we all know about, and that's light. That I want to show you also how I think we can use that light to remember God and some of his character traits as we go through our life. So what is light? No one knows for sure. We all know its causes and its effects, but no one can explain its makeup. So some background, pretty much every substance in the universe is made up of either particles or waves. Particles are what we're made of. We're made up of atoms, and we're solid. I guess some more solid than others. And waves are disturbances in substance, which waves on the beach, they're disturbances in the water, which in the water is known as the wave's medium. But light can't be divided into one or the other, like basically everything else can. So for many years, people believed that light was a wave and was taught as a fact in schools, because light indeed does act as a wave in most cases. However, this raised a question: how can a wave travel through a vacuum from the sun to Earth? Because remember, the wave has to go through a medium. So no medium. Scientists assume this to be ether, a hypothetical substance that was presumed to be weightless, frictionless, and undetectable by physical or chemical means. This ether would permeate everything, making it effective for transmitting light waves. And this was later disproved by an experiment regarding the Earth's motion through space. So then Albert Einstein was actually the person who came up with another idea, and that was light was a particle. Particles can travel through vacuums. You can think of a spaceship. Spaceships are made of particles, and they can go through space. And then, in certain cases, light does act as a particle. The flaw in this idea, light doesn't have mass. You can't reach out and grab light. Every particle, by definition, must have mass. And mass, as a rule, can be felt. Light cannot be felt. So scientists are stuck at how to classify light. So, to appear smart, they don't. They classify light as a wave-particle duality, which means it's both. So God is light, but we can know Him personally. God is light, and in Him is no darkness at all. Like physical light, we may not always know what God is or why He does some of the things He does. However, light, just like light also has its own qualities, so does God. God, as creator of everything, is creator of light is much more dependable than light. For example, the light travels at 299,792,458 meters per second, which translates to 186,282 miles per second. This is fast enough that humans would believe this to be instantaneous. However, God is truly only one who can be instantaneous. He is unbound by time or physical limitations, as He is the creator of both. And this is the person that I think and everybody should trust with their future. All-powerful, limitless, and yet loving enough to send His own Son to die for us. So light, because it is a wave in some respects, has many wavelengths, most of which are unable to be seen with the naked eye. The other wavelengths include ever helpful X-rays, infrared light, and even radio waves are a type of invisible light. This shows me that God is sometimes working even when we can't see, but we still need to trust in Him while He works His perfect will. Final facet of light that I would like to touch on is how important it is to vision. You've all probably been somewhere pitch black where you don't even want to move because you might trip over something. This was obviously because there was no light. But light is because light is the reason we see anything at all. We don't actually see the item we are looking at. We see light reflecting off the item and hitting our eye. That's why we can't see when it starts. I compare that to God in the sense that His word is a light to our feet to keep us from stumbling over the enemy's traps. So in conclusion, graduation is an exciting time. Grade school is finally finished, and the whole rest of your life lies ahead of you. I take comfort in the fact that God of light is looking out for me and everyone else under His care. Since no one alive can see the future, it is a relief to be able to rely on someone who can.
find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. I'll call your name, keep my eyes o'er the waves, resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never fail, and you won't start now. I'll call your name, keep my eyes o'er the waves, resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. I'll call your name, keep my eyes o'er the waves, resting in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. I am yours, and you are mine.
Well, good evening to everyone tonight, and I guess I'll just continue this by thanking everyone for coming and your support. I don't want to be the first one to break that streak here, but we do appreciate the support that has been showing for these young men as for their accomplishment, what they've been able to do and where they've been able to get. So thank you. I do sincerely thank you for coming. And I just found it interesting with the young men sharing. That just shows a glimpse of their personalities, what they choose to focus on here. Darvin talking about looking forward to getting out, and sometimes the things that you struggled with, and it seemed like it wasn't going to end. And Wyatt, his storytelling and good memories, and Braylon not even talking about himself, just talking about things that he learned in school. And I think it's interesting, it's enjoyable to hear, just to see that given a free choice to talk about whatever you like, and I just enjoy that. So thank you very much for sharing. You prepared well. You all three did very well, and I appreciate that. As most of you know, I'm Braylon's father, and it just doesn't, about as fast as Deb went through all those years. Sometimes it feels about that's how fast it went too. Wasn't very long ago that I walked Braylon into the first day of kindergarten with April freezing in there and holding his hand and walking in, and there sits Wyatt and Ashley and whoever else was in there, and it's just amazing how quickly time goes on, and yet here we are at the time of graduation. So up here you got there's some diplomas laying there. So it looks like it's like a nice little folder with something inside of it, you know. So what is that? What is the value of that? For me, I can look at it, that's a receipt for a lot of money. It's been a long time coming. But you know what? I could probably go online somewhere and find a nice little folder like that and print off something that looks identical to that, wouldn't look any different at all. And I could say, Braylon, you can read now. You're in 4th grade. I'm just going to give you this now. It looks exactly the same thing you're going to get if you go to 11 years or 12 years of school. It'll be the same thing. The value is not what's sitting there. The value is in what that represents. Your diploma, you can't give that to somebody else. You can't sell it to anybody. You can't buy one anywhere else. It has value because of what it represents and what you've done. In a similar way to our baptism in and of itself, anybody can go get baptized without this cheap baptism. You can just go and, yeah, I'm baptized now, I'm good to go. If it doesn't represent anything, it has no value. In the same way with your diplomas there, as it represents a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of perseverance to get there. So that's why there's value there. You know, you can lose that. So let's say on the way home you were in a car accident, your car burned up, and that would burn up and you lost that. That still hadn't lost any value. You know, the value is in what it represents. And there was a lot of time invested in that. And the results of this investment that you've made starts, first of all, at school. It starts with knowledge. You've learned a lot of things, you know. You've learned to enjoy reading and read a lot of books, and you've studied the Bible, and you have Bible knowledge that at your age I didn't have. There's a lot of things you've learned in school. Singing, you know, Deb talked about Braylon and Wyatt singing up front there in their 4 years apart. You know, that just touches me. For me, you know, there's words and then there's those shapes that are above and below it that are kind of in the way sometimes. But I do appreciate Wendell and the other teachers investing in the children, teaching things that I didn't know how to teach, things I didn't know. So those are the knowledge things that you've achieved. You've also had some skills that you've learned over the years, writing, getting up front and talking. You know, these are skills that you can use the rest of your life. You know, maybe in church, song leaders, that's already done, devotions, maybe a preacher. Maybe someday you'll get up front at a graduation and talk about your son's graduation. You never know when you're going to use these skills that you learn of speaking and putting together a speech and writing poems and, you know, things that you may not think you're going to use, but you will use them through the rest of your life. Your skills of studying and how to learn, whether you go to college, whether you take a new job, you're going to need to learn things. And there's times, for me, even studying and learning is part of it. And there's one skill always taught in Hebron school, I think as long as the school's been going, that you probably have for the rest of your life, and that is the ability to hit the right field. So you don't hit in the horse pasture. I've noticed that even before I had children in school, the boys that went to Hebron could always hit to right field. So, and if you ever played softball on the softball diamond at Hebron, you understand the necessity of hitting to right field. Another result of that investment is relationships, lifelong friendships. It's just been a pleasure for me to see Braylon and Wyatt grow up together as friends, and as they continue now out of school working together, you know, and it's exciting to see what the future holds. You're going to go through things in life. There's not just Wyatt, but other students you went to school with, and they're going to show up in other places, and those relationships are going to have value. Those relationships are going to mean something. And that's part of that investment of time. You know, the people we spend time with is who we develop relationships with, and I'm just grateful that you spent time with good people. For all of you, I think you've all had good relationships, and that is a great result of that investment. Another result of that is your Christian worldview, the foundation in that. We don't have to unteach things that may have been taught other places. That what you've been taught is sound, and it will lay a foundation for the rest of your life. And those are all things that are results of this investment. Move on from that. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "To whom much is given, much is required." For all of you, much has been given. If you look around the 7 billion people in the world, how many people in the world have the opportunities that you've been given? Growing up in homes like you have, the teaching that you've received, living in an area where you have opportunities to work. To whom much is given, much is required. So far in this life, many of your choices have been made for you. You didn't have much choice. You know, if it's a school day, you go to school. When you get to school, you have what you need to do. As you move on from this, you're going to be making choices on your own. This is part of where the Bible talks about becoming from a child to a man, coming from a boy to a man. And for me, it's a little hard to, as a son, to be releasing and letting go. But as you guys continue and you're ready to figuring that, there's more choices each and every day. There's more choices you are making on your own. You are responsible for your choices. It says, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it means, becoming a man, what that means, and just there's so many different things we can look at on that. And I realize I have about 15 minutes, so I'm just going to have a whole bunch here, but I'll see how far I get on this. But there's a number of things that it means, becoming from a boy to a man. And that's what I want to look at a little bit. And the first thing I'm going to look at is being a wise steward. It says in 1 Corinthians 13, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. So far in your life, starting from a tiny little baby, when a baby is first born, the baby's only concern is itself. It cries when it's hungry, it cries when anything's wrong. It does not, my little son Benjamin, he really does not care about what anyone else thinks, but about what he thinks. Then as we mature to adult, the Bible tells us to care about others. So that you're in that process of going from that child of everything's about you to realizing that really the world is not about you. And how you navigate that determines how successful you'll be in your walk. So time is the most valuable asset that we have in the world. You know, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, they have all the money they could ever want, but they have a limited amount of time. Each and every one of us is not just these young men, but all of us are in that situation. Time is something, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can never get more time. So how we use our time and our money demonstrates who we are and determines who we become. I'll just repeat that. How we use our time and money demonstrates to the world who we are, what our priorities are, and also it will determine the path we're on and what we're going to become. So as you go on with life, work with a purpose. Find your purpose in life and work on it. So there's a couple examples of this. I want to read a little bit what Solomon said. So Solomon was, as we all know, was a wise man, and as he accumulated wealth, he allowed that to drive him. He kind of reverting back to everything being about himself with the wives and the money and all the things he accumulated. Then he had one little section here in Ecclesiastes. This is written towards the end of his life, looking back at everything he had accomplished in his life. This was considered to be the greatest king that ever lived. He had the huge palace and Solomon's temple, and there was wives and thousands of children and gold unimaginable and everything that anybody could want. So what did he say at the end of his life? This is in Ecclesiastes 2. It says, therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for it is all vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it for the man that be after me. And who knoweth whether he should be a wise man or a fool? I just get a kick out of that. All the things I did, is it going to be the guy behind me? What if he's a foolish? What if he doesn't know what he's doing? I worked so hard. Yet he shall have rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. The whole life that he's working, all this work that he's done, and it's just all, he's despairing because that's where he's wrapped up, and that's where his focus is. You all heard it, can't take it with you, right? And Solomon was realizing this. You think the wisest man in the world would know this, right? Towards the end of his life, he's like, really? What's all this stuff for? Coming on this, Jesus, when his teaching says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where neither thieves break through and steal, where neither there's a fool coming behind you that's going to lose all your stuff. I just add that. That's not in the King James Version, but I added that. Comparing to what Solomon said there, he's worried about what's going to happen with his stuff after he's not here. If we're laying up treasure in heaven, our stuff is going ahead of us. Our treasure is going ahead of us. We don't need to worry about what's going to happen when we're not here. That's where we receive our treasure. And it said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So now compare what Solomon said at the end of his life. Now Wyatt read a little bit out of this. What Paul had said at the end of his life. I'm ready to be off, for the time my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith, and henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me in that day, not to me only, but also to them that love his appearing. Look at the difference of looking at the end of life. I don't read anywhere that Paul had any money. The church is supportive in some, but at the end of his life, he was ready to die, and he was in peace. He had a contentment knowing that my treasure is in heaven. So where's the difference from Solomon and Paul? It came back to how they used their time, how they used their money. Solomon used his time in an earthly way to get powerful, to gain a lot of things, but there's no satisfaction. He found no satisfaction in that. So moving on, I'm not sure how many of these I can get to here. So another thing of becoming a man is laying a foundation. I think you've started that in your life by what you've been learning in school, by the homes you've been brought up in. There needs to be a foundation there. And I have the parable here of the house being built on the rock. The house on the sand, the storms came and the house fell down. The house on the rock, it stood. And I always picture this as these two houses. They looked exactly the same, and maybe for years nobody could tell the difference, except for the fact that the guy that built on the sand was his house. He was in his house a year sooner because he built it in 2 days, and it cost him a lot less money. But sometime, eventually, as it always does, the storms come, and then the foundation will be tested. And in your lives, maybe you really haven't experienced storms yet, but you will. Storms will come. That foundation will be tested. Are you trying to take shortcuts? Are you work on the foundation, then build up from there. A shack on a rock is much better than a mansion in the sand. So build upon the rock. And the people I had to think of this trait was Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as they were taken captive into Babylon. And I think of Daniel, praying by the window. He didn't decide that morning that I'm just going to defy the king and pray. He prayed. He prayed every day. Circumstances were not going to change, whether the fact that this was foundational in his life. So he prayed. Could he have went and hidden? Sure, he could have. Would they have caught him? They probably would have caught him. And what would have happened in the lion's den had Daniel been trying to hide and then they caught him? We don't know. But we know what happened when he stayed on that path. He kept that foundation there. And the lions had no power over him. But as we have that foundation, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't decide, if the king ever builds this idol, we're not going to bow down. They had decided in their life they're not bowing to idols. When the king built the idol, that didn't change. Why? Because it was foundational in their life. And when they were faced with the fiery furnace, they said, God can save me from that, but even if he doesn't, that's all right. I'm okay with where we're going on this. Another trait of men is showing humility. Example I have of this is Job. In the story of Job, he went through so much. He had everything, then he lost it all. Unimaginable what he went through in that, and left nothing, to the point where he was nearing death he thought he was going to die yet. And his wife even pretty much told him to forsake God and die. Total bottom of bottoms. We can feel a little sorry for Job. And Job he questioned God a little bit. And then God gave him answers and talked to him for chapter after chapter and asked him questions that Job couldn't answer. And then Job would be quiet, then he would ask some more, then God would repeat it. And Job is 40 chapters. The story we know of Job is like the first one and the last one. There's like 38 chapters in between there of God, of dialogue of his friends and God. And just Job was facing a lot of discouragement. And then finally, after all these questions God asked him, one thing had to happen before Job had his life returned to him. And I'll just read one verse here. In Job 42, verse 5 and 6. He said, he's Job speaking to God. I have heard of thee by the hearing of my ear, but now my eye sees thee. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. It took Job humbling himself before God and realizing he does not know. God does things we don't know in life sometimes. We don't understand. As we humble ourselves before God and say, God, I don't know. You know everything. I do not. And then we have about another half a chapter of Job, and he just gets everything back. And that's the end of the story. Had Job done that in chapter 4, maybe Job would only be 5 chapters long. But it took that, and I think that's the example that we can get out of Job, is come before God and say, God, I don't always. We don't have to understand everything. Another trait is men would keep good company. So many people have been brought down. Psalm, first verse in Psalms, this is from David. Blessed be the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of scornful. Be around people that are going to lift you up. Be around people that are built standing and working on the same foundation you are. And if they're not, separate yourself from that. In the third verse there it says, and you shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, bringeth forth fruit in his season, and the leaf shall not wither, and whatever he doeth shall prosper. Another one I want to look at quickly here is men live in purity. And that in this day and age, it's such a challenge with the technology and things we have, but men, to be successful in life, living in purity is part of that. It was a hindrance and a downfall to David and Solomon and Samson and so many others of great men of God, great potential, and yet this was where they fall. Just a few verses out of Proverbs. Keep thee from the strange woman, the stranger which flatters with her words. Hearken to me, and then I'm skipping a few verses. Hearken to me now, therefore, children, attend the words of my mouth. Let not thy heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths. For she casteth down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, and goeth down into the chambers of death. It's a serious thing. Living in purity allows us to have a proper view of the world. Our minds are not corrupted. In Titus it says, unto the pure all things are pure, but them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, not because even their mind and their conscience is defiled. They profess to know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, in every good work reprobate. So that last verse, that sounds terrible, right? But it says, going back one verse, that's referring to those that are defiled, the impure. Profess to know God, but in works deny him. That verse has always been a challenge to me. I think every one of us in here profess to know God. Do we in works deny him? I trust not. That is a verse to carry with you, But let our profession be our life. Controlling our thoughts goes right with that. I don't even have the reference down for this. It says, even though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought through the obedience of Christ. Controlling our thoughts starts with what we put into our minds. So we cannot expect to fill our minds and fill our hearts with garbage and then be filled with the Spirit. It doesn't work that way. An example I like to use, I'm holding a cup here full of coffee, right? And somebody walks by and bumps the cup, and the coffee sloshes out on the carpet. Now, why did the coffee dump on the carpet? The first suggestion would be, someone bumped the cup, right? No, the reason coffee dumped on the carpet, because there was coffee in the cup. Look at the cup as your life. You're going to get bumped. What's inside is going to spill out. If there's coffee in, it's going to spill out. If there's water in, that's going to spill out too. So what we put into our life is what is going to spill out when we're bumped. That coffee cup can look really, really nice up until it's bumped. You don't know what's in it. I could hold it here. You could set it right here on the edge. Nobody would know what's in it if it doesn't get bumped, right? It could be full of the nastiest stuff in the nicest cup, and no one will know until it gets bumped, but it will get bumped. That will come out. So that's with our controlling our minds starts with what we put into our minds and where we focus our thoughts. And I need to wrap this up here. Just a few more things, like persevere like Paul did. He has here in 2 Corinthians 13, he talks about all the things he went through. I'll just read this quickly. The Jews, 5 times I received 40 stripes, save one. Thrice I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. Night and day I have been in the deep, and journeyings often, perils of water, perils of robbers, and perils by my own countrymen, and perils by the heathen, and perils in the city, and perils in the wilderness, in the sea, and among the false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, in watching often, in hunger and thirst, in fasting often, in cold and nakedness, besides all those things that are without, that which comes on me daily, the care of all the churches. All these things he went through, and he persevered. That verse I read earlier, I have fought the good fight. He was laying up his treasure where all those things that could have destroyed his earthly treasure couldn't touch it. Looking at David, having a tender side like David, he was a great warrior, and yet he spent his time writing psalms and songs for people. Don't be too manly to reach out and to have that tender side. Men are designed to be warriors and leaders and stand up against evil, stand up for the weak. Those are all things that, as you go from boyhood to manhood, you have vision to see what's ahead of you, see the danger ahead of you in life. And I just want to wrap this up here with a few quotes. So I just had a couple of them here that I want to look at. So the first one I have is, what lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us. That's Ralph Waldo Emerson. Albert Einstein said, try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. And Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, but just take the first step. You know, there's a place you want to get in life, and you know, it may look like it's way up here, and your aim is to go there. Sometimes you can't see the way there. You can't see how to get to the man that you know you need to be, but that you can always see the next step in front of you. And as you take that next step, you'll be able to see the one after that. So that's my encouragement for you guys. As you look at this changing from boyhood to manhood, growing to adult, look at that next step in front of you. If that step is in the right direction, then there will be another step there for you to step on next. So that's all I have to share this evening. And just one more thing here. I'd just like to finish up with congratulations on getting through the easiest part of life.
The way it sounds, it don't be proper to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'm honored to have 3 graduates up here, of one who I've spent no years of school with, and the other 2 less than 10%, it seems like. But I enjoyed watching you all work hard through school, growing up with you, Darvin, and learning of how you went through school as well. It was a joy to see, and I wish you all the best as you go on. I would like to draw a few conclusions, or few leadership skills for you all 3, if possible, and 2, you probably know where these are going to come from. But for someone who would be quiet, who delivers sharp-witted jokes, is incredibly hard to get across the finish line, I would akin Darvin to our 30th president, Calvin Coolidge. The president, Coolidge, was famously nicknamed Silent Cal. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he possessed a legendary, razor-sharp, dry wit. He didn't speak often, but when he did, it counted. He was meticulous, he was grueling, he was a good worker who climbed the ladder entirely through relentless effort and discipline. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make an impact. True strength is found in quiet diligence. A well-timed, sharp perspective can change a room. Keep working hard, keep observing, and never lose your wit. I'm honored to be able to present to you your graduation diploma. For the one who is competitive, friendly, musical, and outgoing, I would akin this graduate, Wyatt, to nobody else than our 26th president, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was an absolute force of nature. He was gregarious, incredibly friendly, and he was wildly vocal. I don't want you to take that. You're wildly vocal, Wyatt. He was a little bit more wildly vocal than Wyatt is probably. He was even famously said that he wanted to be the corpse at every wedding and the bride at the corpse at every funeral and the bride at every wedding, if I get that said correctly. He loved to be the center of attention. He jumped headfirst into every challenge imaginable. He was driven by fierce competitive spirit and a pure joy for winning the day. Your energy and voice are gifts that lift everyone around you. Channel that competitive fire and love for life into big things. Keep stepping into the arena, tackling challenges head on, and singing your song for the world to hear. I'm honored to be able to give you your diploma as well. And last but not least, for Braylon, who is introspective, quiet, but possesses the rare ability to be able to think deeply through complex, difficult problems, he would probably come closest to probably comes close to our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was fundamentally a melancholic, quiet, and deeply reflective thinker. Although I would not choose you as to be melancholic because that's somewhat depressive. He didn't jump to impulsive conclusions. Instead, he would quietly retreat into his own mind, turning a problem over from every single angle until he found a logical, structural solution. His brilliance wasn't in loud speeches, but in his profound depth of thought and ability to navigate a nation through its most complex crisis. The world needs people who don't just react, but who deeply reflect. Your ability to quietly analyze and untangle difficult problems is a rare superpower. Trust your intellect, keep looking beneath the surface, and use your mind to bring clarity to a complicated world. I'm glad and honored that I can give you your high school diploma as well.
Okay, I think we'll wrap this up with a prayer of blessing. So if you want to stand for a word of prayer, let's pray. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the freedom that we enjoy in this country, of where we can teach your principles without hindrance. And I pray that as these young men begin a new segment in their life, I pray that you would bless them with fullness, richness. I pray that as they develop further, that you would use them in the way that you have planned for them. I pray that you would give them enough difficulty that they would be that they could endure hardness as a true soldier of Jesus Christ. And I just pray that you would go with them. We just ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. And the ushers will probably usher you out. And thank you for coming.